Welcome back to another episode of the Young Guides Podcast. I'm Keaton, and this is...
I'm Kyle.
But first, a word from our partners.
First up, we want to talk about Heather's Choice. If you go to the Heather's Choice website and use our code TheYoungGuides15 at checkout, you can get yourself 15% off site-wide. So go check them out. We got packaroons for snacks. We got dinners. We got breakfasts. We got a bunch of new recipes coming out to you guys. So head on over to heatherschoice.com at checkout. Use our code TheYoungGuides15 and get you guys something for your next outdoor adventure.
Awesome. For our next partner, we have Lucky Bug Lures, home of the Bingo Bug, Zombie Max, Fusion Extreme, Lucky Plug, F-Bomb, and Pike Bomb. They take conventional lures and change them up a little bit, and it helps your fishing and your luck on the water. Go check them out. www.luckybuglures.com. Go get yours today.
All right. Up next, we have Northern Knits. Emily up here in Anchorage knits wool hats and distributes them through her social media platforms. You can find her on Facebook or on Instagram. Her Instagram account is northern._.knits. And you can see some of the hats that she has in stock and order from there, or you can kind of get an idea of what you want, message her, and you can set something up to have a specific pattern or color scheme that you want in your hat. Keaton and I both have one. Well, I actually have several. Keep you very warm. They're very fashionable. They look great. They feel great. You'll look awesome if you wear one. So check her out, Northern Knits.
Next up, we have a friend, Matt, at Alaska Rod Co. He just released a new lineup of rods for the 2022 season. They have a lineup of 8 freshwater spinning rods with actions and power for anglers chasing big, aggressive fish. With lengths ranging from 6 foot to 9 foot, there are plenty of options for various applications and style. In a world full of mass-produced rods, Alaska Rod Co. makes sure that rods and services provide what other brands cannot. Rods built and tested in Alaska.
Matt also is coming out with a new line of fly rods. Alaska Rod Co. fly rods are built for harsh environments while maintaining the utmost level of craftsmanship. Right now, Alaska Rod Co. is 9-foot fly rods ranging from 5 weights to 8 weights. 10-foot single-hand rods, switch, and spare rods will be available late winter or spring. There's enough rod companies out there trying to build the next lightest and flashy rod. Alaska Rod Co. is here to build you a rod you can pass down generations. Fishing means many things to many different people. Alaska Rod Co. is honored to build you the ultimate tool that connects you to that meaning.
If you want to learn a little bit more about Alaska Rod Company, go back and check our previous podcast. We asked him several questions about his rods, his warranties. He does a great job at explaining everything and covering everything about his company. Also, if you have questions, you can always DM him or DM us and we can get you going in the right direction. So, Alaska Rod Co.
Finally, we want to say thank you for listening to another episode of the Young Guides podcast. If you can, head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and a rating. It helps us know that we're doing this for the right reasons, and you guys are giving us some great feedback already. You can also head over to Spotify. They now have a rating feature on the podcast there. So if you could let us know how we're doing, that would be great. It also helps helps us spread the word through you. But makes us pop up on the feeds wherever you listen to podcasts a lot more if you give us a great rating and a great review. You can also head to our website and contact us through that form if there's anything that you think we should know about, if you want to be on our show, or if there's something that we need to work on. You can also find us on Instagram, and same thing, give us some feedback, drop us a message, and we will get back to you.
With Instagram, make sure to also check our story. We before we do our podcast on Thursdays, we always have an option for you guys to ask questions to the people coming on our podcast. And we post a lot of stuff that we like to get viewers and people following us involved. So if you want to head on over, give us a follow and start asking questions and join in on the fun on our Instagram page.
Without further ado, here's the episode.
Welcome back to another episode of the Young Guides podcast. I'm Keaton, and this is...
I'm Kyle.
And today we have a special guest on, Bruce Tyson. Bruce does a lot with Project Healing Waters. He does a lot with Trout Unlimited and is just an all-around great guy. Has fished in many places, so very knowledgeable on that. And we're excited to have him on the podcast today. So with that being said, welcome onto the podcast, Bruce.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. I really appreciate being here, and appreciate the opportunity to pass on some of my advice, expertise, or whatever to the young guides. Pleasure.
Heck yeah. Yeah, thanks for hopping on, Bruce. Keaton and I have known Bruce for a while, and we both volunteered at some of the events. I remember I did a Project Healing Waters event a couple of years ago back on the Yakima. Super fun time. Done several floats with Bruce, and yeah, we really enjoyed talking to Bruce. And even before we started recording, we were talking about some of the similar trips we've done in Alaska. And Bruce has fished a lot of cool places, and he's got a lot of cool stories and experiences. So yeah, we're super stoked to have you on. With that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Bruce, about your background, what you're doing now, and maybe start how you even got into the outdoors, how you got into fishing.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Well, I am one of three boys in our family. I'm the youngest of three, and we're all within 4 years. So as kids, we always did hunting and fishing with mom and dad. I mean, mom also fished with us a lot, and she hunted too. So we did a lot of family things as kids. Now back then I wasn't fly fishing, but as things progressed, I went to high school, college, graduated from college, spent some years in the military. I spent 5 years active duty in the military. And after active duty, I remained in the reserves for another 15 years. So I am retired military.
Nice.
But after I left active duty, which was a long time ago, probably before most of you were born, I left active duty in 1980 and started to work for Procter & Gamble in Northeast Pennsylvania. And again, that's a great place for hunting and fishing. And I did a lot of that along the way. So I've always hunted and always. After, I guess I spent 14 years with Procter & Gamble, and my wife and I decided to leave, and we wanted to go to the Northwest. So we came out to the Seattle area, and I got another position with a company out here. My wife got a position with Weyerhaeuser. And after a couple of years, I actually went off to be an independent contractor. And what I did as a civilian, I installed and started up manufacturing equipment everywhere, international, a lot of domestic, whatever. So that's what I did as a career. I started fly fishing back in 1985 when I was still in Pennsylvania. And I figured the best way to get into it would kind of do it right. So I went to the Orvis Fly Fishing School in Battenkill, Vermont. It's a 4-day deal. And, since that time, I've been hooked. And actually, I still use Orvis equipment. I think they make some really great stuff right now. So most of my stuff is Orvis stuff. But again, since 1985, I've been doing a lot of fly fishing everywhere. I think we moved out to the Pacific Northwest in 1994. So this year we will have been here for 28 years. And all along the way, when I was working and of course, I've been retired for about 10 years. But even when I was working, I always uh, did a lot of destination fishing. So New Zealand or South America, Central America, wherever, Alaska, Canada. So that's kind of where I'm at now, and I still do a lot of that stuff. But being retired, I spend a lot of my time now working with Project Healing Waters. I've probably been with them for well over 12 years. And I was the program leader at Joint Base Lewis McChord for a couple of years. I am no longer, but I still do a lot of stuff with that program. And additionally, I'm the Veteran Services representative for the Three Rivers Trout Unlimited chapter.
Yeah, awesome.
And that particular organization, RTU doesn't fish much, but they do an awful lot of conservation work.
Yes.
And of course, that's where I met Keaton. And of course, I met Kyle several years ago. Not sure when. It's been probably been quite some time ago.
Mhm.
Um, but in any event, I volunteer with TU and I do a lot of work with Project Healing Waters. So that's, I guess, kind of where we're at right now.
Awesome.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I've never what did you do in the military? Like what was your job?
I was in the Corps of Engineers.
Oh, cool.
So my first assignment was in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a combat engineer platoon leader.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
of course, that time in the military, it was all peacetime. So we trained, you know,
Yeah.
we did some training in some large areas in Germany, some big training areas. So we trained how to blow crap up, for the most part,
Yeah. That's awesome.
because that's what the engineers do. The engineers go in and you set up uh, uh, entrenchments
Yeah.
or road mines, you blow down trees, you build bridges, stuff like that.
I
Uh,
was just I'm always curious to see what people did like in the military and everyone that comes on here and talks about their military experience. It's so different because we get them from all different time periods. So
yeah.
it's like, oh, what did you do? And like my friend Michael on previous ones, he did like air traffic control, and he's like, yeah, nothing really was happening. I just stayed in a desert for 5 years and made planes land. So I'm always asking, seeing what people did. It's always cool, and thank you for your service. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that period of time, post Vietnam, I mean, the military wasn't the best place to be,
Yeah,
and there wasn't anything going on, so it was kind of a little boring. But in the final analysis, nobody ever shot at me, so I can't complain about that. But
yeah,
I also enjoyed staying in the reserves because I kept contact with a lot of my classmates, a lot of the folks that I knew in the military over the years.
that's cool.
And well, actually, this is an interesting fact. The Secretary of Defense is one of my classmates.
Oh wow.
Lloyd Austin
Very
is
cool.
one of my classmates, and there's a couple of guys that have been on CNN all the time. Spider Marks, he's a classmate, and Mark Hertling, he's also a classmate. So it's kind of interesting to see um, uh, my classmates with some extraordinary success.
Yeah,
That's super cool.
that is cool.
Heck yeah. So when you got started fly fishing, like what prompted you? You were still in the reserves at that time, right? Did you have like a mentor that somebody you were working with or associated with?
No, not really. At the time I was working for Procter and Gamble in Northeast Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and I did all sorts of stuff. I hunted, I fished, gear fished, I played racquetball, I bowled, whatever. I did all sorts of stuff, and then nobody prompted me, but I mean, I always really enjoyed fishing, but I just all of a sudden said, hey, I do a lot of different stuff and don't particularly do anything really well. So I'm going to cut out everything and do one thing and try to do it well. So that's what I did. I cut out all the other activities and I focused on fly fishing. And I kind of stuck with it ever since. But no, I kind of did it on my own. But I had a lot of friends. I mean, up in that area, all the folks that I worked with at the plant, they're hunters and fishermen. So there was a good audience, a good group of people to be with to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So what kind of like what was your go-to like hunting, and like what was kind of your go-to fishing out there? Were you just mostly doing like trout stuff? Was there a variety of things that you could go after? And then kind of what did hunting look like for you out there too?
Yeah, well, Northeast Pennsylvania, all of those streams, it's all trout, brookies and browns, primarily. I'm sorry, rainbows and browns, a couple of brookies here and there. So mostly trout. Um, and like I say, there's a ton of streams and all over Pennsylvania, but they're pretty much all stock streams, which is okay. But I really enjoyed fishing the streams up there. In terms of hunting, just deer and turkey
Yeah.
primarily. There were, I mean, I lived on a lake, and actually there was a good bass fishing in the lake. I caught I don't know, 7 or 8 pound bass in the lake that I live on.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I would hunt. I didn't I didn't drive anywhere. I walked around the lake and hunted up on the side hill. And
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so I mean the hunting and fishing was right there.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go far to get into some pretty good hunting and fishing. And turkey hunting again, that was also pretty local. Um, so that's pretty much what I did.
Was was there a lot of like where you were hunting, was it private or was it public, or was there a lot of public land access in that area, or kind of did you just keep to yourself?
Uh, there's some public land, but a lot of the public land gets a lot of hunters and gets some morons from New Jersey who normally shoot cows. So, you get on the public lands, it can, it's not as great. So most of the places that we hunted was somebody's private property.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Good to have connections.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there were, again, you work at the plant and everybody's lived there. Many people live there all their lives. So this guy has a farm, this guy owns this land, this guy owns, and I bought 100 acres up there too. I had my own slice of land. So, yeah, it wasn't a big deal to find a decent place to hunt. That was private.
That's awesome.
And fishing, everything was public. Um, all state-run, state stock streams and stuff like that. But there were a lot of them, and I mean, you guys know, you get 100 yards off the beaten path, you can get into some pretty decent water.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
yeah,
Everyone fishes the main access points and
Yeah.
doesn't like move very far, or not
Yeah.
willing to like get away from that. So
right, right. And back then, our the first day of trout was always around Easter. It's kind of early. Um, we'd get a group of guys and we'd gather, well, somewhere, just mainly probably a restaurant, and have an early breakfast, beer and eggs.
that's awesome.
Then we'd head out to the river with a six-pack in the net and have a pretty good day. So
Yeah. Doesn't sound like too bad of a time.
yeah, I muddled through.
You at least caught a buzz that day, right?
And some fish. I mean, they're yeah, the stock trout are not all that challenging to catch. But yeah, we always had a great time. Just with friends, fishing, and just having a great time.
Cool.
Gotcha. So, I apologize if you mentioned this earlier. What was your draw then when you moved out west? Was it to have more opportunity to fish and do things outdoors, or I mean, I know you said
Not,
your wife got a job too. Sorry.
yeah, not necessarily. I mean, my wife and I, at the time, we had moved from Pennsylvania to Cincinnati, so
Mm.
we were in Cincinnati for 4 years, and for the life of me, I have no idea why anybody lives in the Midwest. There's not a whole lot of hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
um, but we were we were ready to leave Procter and Gamble, and we were talking to each other. Where do you want to go? Let's go to the Northwest. So we kind of decided to go to the Northwest, and then the jobs kind of fell in place. Not just hunt and fish, but just it's a beautiful area of the country. And of course, I hunt and I fished anywhere. So
Yeah.
the my home location doesn't mean a whole lot to me. So yeah, we just wanted to come out here to the beautiful Pacific Northwest, and so that's what we did.
That's awesome. When did you want to get into like doing volunteer work? How did you find that? Like, what was your drive to do volunteer work?
Uh, that's an interesting question. Let me put some thought behind that. I think at the time I was involved. This is how it happened. I had involved myself with the Overlake Fly Fishing Club. Okay,
Mhm.
and they had an association with Project Healing Waters, and the club always had a rep to deal with Healing Waters. Well, I find out about that, and I said, hey, wow, man, I would really love to get involved with that. Um, so that's how I got involved. I got involved by going through the Overlake Fly Fishing Club, and I became the club rep, and I've been the club rep forever. But I met up with Chuck Ty, uh, who was the regional coordinator and program leader for at that time Fort Lewis, and we developed a relationship, and I just kept with him for many years. I just did all sorts of stuff with him. I like being with the military guys because they're kind of like me,
Yeah.
and they like to hunt, they like to fish, and it's once you get involved with the Healing Waters guys, the thing that makes it so special is, I mean, you guys know why we fly fish.
Mhm.
I fly fish to get away, and when I'm on a stream, I don't think about anything else. I, I'm watching my strike indicator. I'm reading the water. I'm figuring out which fly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the cast where I want. I don't think about anything else. It's a complete escape.
Exactly.
That's the magic about fly fishing. And I think with that passion, you bring that to these injured soldiers, um, and you can pass it on pretty quickly because these guys will come in for the first time, and and we tie flies in Healing Waters. We build rods. We do all sorts of stuff. But you know, we had a group that tied flies, and we still do every other week. You bring in a new guy, and I'll tell you, some of these injured soldiers are pretty messed up. And I'm talking more mentally than physically. That PTSD, um, which is really pretty debilitating. And so, we've had guys come in that, man, you wouldn't want to put them in front of anybody that because they're angry, they're uh, withdrawn. But we put them down in front of a vise and show them how to tie a fly, and immediately all that other stuff goes away.
Yeah.
You know, hey, dude, we're tying a fly. This is how you do it. Okay, hey, and that starts to get them hooked, and then we'll give them some equipment. We'll take them out on an outing. I've had a few guys catch the first trout right back here in the Cedar River. Um, with me right there showing them how to do it. So and this healing waters can really bring them out of the shell, and it gives them something to look forward to,
Yeah.
other than doctor's appointment for this and whatever, all sorts of crap that they do on a normal basis. But hey, man, we're going fishing this weekend, or we're tying flies next Tuesday, and I'm going to meet up with some of my other compatriots, and we're just going to have a good time.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Can you tell us a little bit of background on how Project Healing Waters got started?
Yeah, I don't know the exact dates, but I mean, it's only about 14 or 15 years old. There was a Navy, I think at the time he may have been a captain, which of course is an Army colonel. He was at Fort Lewis. He was injured and he was rehabilitating. And he decided, and I don't know how, to, uh, to, to get people into fly fishing. And his name was Ed, I'm thinking Ed Nicholson, I believe, started it. And I don't quote me, I may have that name wrong, but I think that's correct. So out of Walter Reed Hospital, he started Project Healing Waters. And of course, it's still headquartered in Maryland. And I don't know how he grew the program, but he did. And now there are, I'm not even sure how many regions, but all over the United States. I'm thinking there's 16 regions, maybe more, and there's
Mhm.
210 programs made up of those regions. And I'm thinking 4 or 5 thousand service people are what we uh, are what we help right now. And of course, we have a whole boatload of volunteers that facilitate that.
Yeah. What has the South? Uh, so is it the Tacoma chapter or South Puget Sound chapter? What do you guys kind of go by?
No, our we call them programs. We don't call them chapters. Trout Unlimited has chapters.
Yeah,
Healing,
I know. I'm in the chapter. I'm in that chapter tunnel.
yeah,
Um,
but Healing Waters has programs.
okay.
Uh, the program that I work with is the Joint Base Lewis McChord program, JBLM. But there are some other local chapters. In fact, for the outing that we have next weekend on the 16th of April, that's a pretty big outing. And
Yeah.
like the two fly on the Yakima every fall, that's a pretty big outing where there are several different programs involved. So next weekend will involve the Spokane program,
Nice.
the Seattle program, Joint Base Lewis McChord, and we have 8 guys coming up from the Portland Vancouver program.
Yeah. So, what has this program, how has this program developed since you first joined it to how it is now? Like, do you guys feel like you're doing more events? Do you feel like you have more, people coming to the programs and events? How has that escalated over the years?
Well, it's been a bit of a, there's been changes, obviously.
Yeah.
When Chuck Ty ran the program, I mean, it was a great program. We had a really good individual participation from Joint Base Lewis McChord, but we didn't do any of the national events. And Healing Waters has a national fly tying competition. They have a national rod building competition. And there are also national programs that we can send people to, for 4 days of fly fishing wherever. Um,
That's so cool.
yeah. Um, so when I became the program leader, we got more involved in the national stuff. Um, and in terms of participation, uh, people, at Joint Base Lewis McChord, people come and go because they're, for the most part, they're younger, and they're recently injured. They're going through Madigan Hospital. They're getting their disability rating, blah blah blah. Um, but we'll have people come and go. But we've also had a pretty good group that stayed, has stayed and lives here in the Pacific Northwest, and they've always been a stalwart of the program. But there are always changes in personnel.
Yeah.
Um, but again, we got involved in these national competitions, and I mean, the guys in our program in, like, I'm going to say 19 and 20, we cleaned up. I mean, we had, oh, I don't know. I think of the, let's take, for example, fly tying. I think there were three categories: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And then you have three winners in each category: first, second, and third. So that's 369. I think we had three or four people. I
That's,
mean, out of 210 programs, I mean,
yeah.
we've done really well. And rod building, we've had winners and runners up. So our we spend some time with the guys and gals, and they enjoy it. And our folks have done really well in the national competitions. Uh, Now, then comes COVID, and you can imagine what that would do, because the key to our program is getting together.
Yeah.
So as of early 2020, up until just this past Christmas, we we couldn't even meet. And we did a lot of stuff over Zoom. We ran fly tying sessions. We'd buy, there's places where you can buy kits. We've had kits sent out to our guys and tried to keep them engaged. And we had other Zoom programs, educational programs. So we did our best to keep people engaged,
Yeah.
and it worked pretty well. I would say we did pretty well. But now we're back doing stuff in person, and it's back to the way that it almost used to be. So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what is this who is this program offered to? And so you kind of mentioned active duty, and then you've been talking, you have some retired guys. Is there anyone else that it's offered to, or is it just mostly?
it is offered to any soldier who has a VA disability. Now, that soldier can be retired, or the soldier can still be on active duty. So you don't have to be retired. So any soldier with a VA disability is eligible to participate as a participant.
Yeah.
Now, of course, anybody can volunteer. Like me, I'm not a disabled vet, but I volunteer. Now, the only difference between being a volunteer and being a participant, um, particularly when it comes to national programs, we can't have volunteers enter the rod building competition or fly tying competition or go on a national program. Um, Now, locally, the volunteers, I mean, we count on the volunteers to help out and do
Yeah.
this, that, or the other, but the volunteers also, they do the same things that the participants do.
Nice.
Thank you.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, there have been times like I know that Keaton's going to be volunteering at that event next week, Greg Keaton, and I've volunteered at events in the past, and it's super cool to be a part of that. and to give back to people that have served in the military or are currently serving, and to provide an outing for them and an opportunity to get outside and fish or tie flies. Or I know I've also given some my fly tying equipment to that I didn't personally use anymore, that I know could be put towards somebody else tying a fly. And so it feels really good to give back and volunteer. And even though I don't have a military background, it's still good to have that opportunity to participate.
Yeah, and it's, guys like you that are a big part of the success of the organization. Um, we have to have volunteers do that kind of stuff. We need, donations. We need equipment. Because a lot of these soldiers, they don't have a whole lot.
Yeah.
And we try to provide all of the basic needs for them. And like you say, got to have a boat if you're going to float the yak. So, but that guys like you are definitely help to make this program the success that it is today. And of course, I thank you, and I know our guys and gals also are very appreciative of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It's an important cause.
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about. I know you were talking about that event next week. Can you give us a little bit of more detail on how these events in general kind of go on, and what you provide and what somebody might expect who's participating or volunteering?
Yeah, next week is actually one of our one of the best events of the year. I mean, we have two really special events, and that's the Lake Langlois event and the two fly on the Yakima. But the Lake Langlois event is, it's a local lake. It's up here near Carnation. Um, and again, we've expanded the It's not just a single program. We've invited all the local programs to join us. And the only way you can fish the lake is in a boat. So, I've been in the process of lining up boats from the Trout Unlimited, from the Overlake Fly Fishing Club, lots of
Mhm.
other contacts that I know. Ellensburg Angler is uh, Todd and Stefan are coming out from Ellensburg Angler, and they've been special partners. Um, so whatever, we'll all gather at the lake next Saturday, the 16th, and we'll split up, into teams of two. A boat will take two folks. So we expect our volunteers with boats to, row these guys around the lake. And the other special thing about this event, the 16th of April is a week before trout season opens on that lake, which means Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife allows us every year to come in 1 week early, and have first dibs at all of the trout. So
Yeah.
there are very few people that don't catch fish. I mean, guys can have 50 fish days. You
Wow.
know, so but in any event, our volunteers, our boat rowers will row them around. They'll come in around lunchtime, and we're going to cook some burgers and dogs, um, fish a little bit more, and probably break up mid-afternoon. But the other special thing about this event, we have just a lot of support. Trout Unlimited runs it, so I'm running it out of Trout Unlimited. Um, but we have a lot of support from Overlake Fly Fishing Club. They're providing the funding for lunch. Plus, a lot of those guys have boats. We get a lot of guys from TU are providing boats. The Daughters of the American Revolution is providing like breakfast snacks, and they're going to
Oh, cool.
they're going to get everybody registered when they come in. So we have several organizations that are working together to provide this really grand day for all of our disabled disabled vets.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very important to do that too.
Yeah. And I was just telling Kyle and Keaton a little earlier that we might be a little short on boats. So if they can get the message out, we might need another boat or two. So if any of you young guides are free next Saturday, um, I'm sure they'll provide my email. Don't
Yeah.
text me. I'm an old guy. I don't have a smartphone. Don't text me. Email or call. Okay.
Yeah,
But if you're interested, we'd love to have another volunteer or two with a boat.
that's awesome.
Sounds good. So if you see a bright orange hideout there not catching any fish, you know who it is.
It's not bright orange, all right? It's red, okay? Color's right. That thing, the red attracts fish, Kyle. All right, that's
Okay.
why I painted it. That's what I was told. So,
Okay.
All right.
all right. So let's go to a different gear. You talked about how Trout Unlimited is running this event. What have you done for Trout Unlimited that has also benefited, with these veterans and like the conservation work that you're doing and stuff like that? Can you go into that for us?
Well, Trout Unlimited is, when it comes to fishing, this is pretty much the only event that no, that's not true. Trout Unlimited sponsors two events a year
Mhm.
that benefit Healing Waters. This is the first one, and then in the fall, right around Veterans Day, they have the Perchathon, and that's in Lake Sammamish. Now, that's not a fly fishing event. It's an event where we get people to drag as many perch out of the lake as possible. And they have sponsors that give so much money, blah blah blah, but all the proceeds to that go to Project Healing Waters. So that's a really good funding source for us. And again, um, that's a Trout Unlimited deal. Um, Now, other than that, uh, I do some other stuff with Trout Unlimited. Um, now, I'm all for conservation, but I'm an angler.
Yeah.
So, and RTU, they do barrier assessment. They count kokanee fry coming out of the Sammamish Lake. They do all sorts of conservation projects. They're catching African clawed frogs.
Yeah.
Um,
The
so
list can go on for miles.
the list does go on for miles. And our president, he's a fantastic guy, and he has his hands in so many conservation projects, and he really pushes the organization, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
But I'm an angler.
Yes.
I will help in some of those other areas. I'm counting fry now. 3 hours a night for what, eight nights or whatever, and that's fun. You meet some new people, you do something different.
Hmm.
But all these other conservation projects are sponsored by TU, and they're really into conservation.
That's awesome. It's rubbed off on Keaton. I know that for sure.
Well, Keaton. You talk about an example. He's just been doing a phenomenal job with TU. He's taken over the Cedar River cleanup. This will probably be your third year coming up.
This is going to be my fourth year.
Fourth year, okay.
Yeah.
Because I pretty much started it with Orvis about however many years ago.
It bounced around, and we had, someone would pick it up here and there, and
Yeah,
but I feel like since we've been steady with it the last couple years, we haven't had, like, the first year we did it. Remember, we about pulled out a whole car. It was
yeah,
bumpers, and we had tires, and we had rims, and we had, the guy's 24-pack of beer that was in the back of his car as he drove it into the river. So
yeah,
it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
everywhere. And I mean,
Yeah,
we still get some crazy stuff here and there, but um, yeah, you got to do your part in the urban fisheries. I
yeah,
can't preach it enough. You
yeah.
know,
But I mean, just Keaton's done a fantastic job with that, and he's going to make it bigger and better this year. And of course, the last couple of years kind of sucked with COVID,
yeah,
but we still had them. We still had them, and we did well. We got stuff out of the river. We had pretty good participation,
yep,
but it's going to get bigger and better. But thanks to guys like Keaton, that that stuff happens as well. And that some of these projects are on individual initiative,
yeah.
and that's one of them. So it's really special.
It's there's a lot of planning to it, and I think that's like the most challenging part for an individual, right? Is just making sure you plan it all out and everything kind of gets in gear smoothly. But at the end of the day, you can't do these events without, like you're saying with your events too, is you can't do them without volunteers, right?
Right.
It's like you want to take the credit for it, but you're like, if I could put all this together, but if I'm the only one standing out here, it's not going to do much. So it's like the volunteers that come out and help out, or the people that are fishermen or not fishermen, or hunters or not hunters, that just I just love that we come together on one day and we just all push for put our things aside and we just do something good.
Right.
Yeah.
And that uh, that circle of anglers, conservationists, it kind of they kind of stick together because Ellensburg Angler now they'll do a Yakima River cleanup. Um, I'll go out to that cleanup, and
Yeah.
they come here for our cleanup. And there's people will go back and forth and support all of these efforts to protect our waters. So, and
Yeah.
that's really cool.
It's important. So what's like been your favorite event through your years of TU? What's like one of your like one event that just kind of stands out to you?
Uh, oh, it has to be the Lake Langlois event for TU,
Yeah.
uh, and um, and for Healing Waters is probably the two fly. Although I mean, there's a lot of stuff with Healing Waters that I've always found really rewarding. Just our guys winning competitions and um, whatever stuff like that. But
How do you think more people in the industry, whether you're a guide, you're just a really passionate angler, maybe you work at a shop, how can those kind of people get more involved and give back both to our veterans, people in the military, and then back to conservation and through like Trout Unlimited? What's the best way that they can get more involved?
well, Healing Waters, Trout Unlimited, um, Wounded Warriors. There are many organizations, and there are some others.
Hmm.
There are some others that deal. There's another one called Got Your Six.
Hmm.
Yeah.
A guy that used to be part of Healing Waters. He started his own nonprofit, and he does basically the same thing, but his guy's gearfish. Um, but there are get involved in those organizations, and they're around. And if you have any questions, um, somebody knows. Somebody that knows. Oh, well, this guy works for Healing Waters. This guy's in TU. Talk to this guy or that gal, and and if you're interested, there's something for you to do. Absolutely, there's something for you to do. And in many cases, it'll be something that you'll really enjoy doing.
Absolutely. Why do you think it's important for, that, let's say, guides or people just out using the resource to be involved uh, in, like, let's say, like river cleanup and stuff? Why do you think that's important? And how do you think more people could get involved that way?
Well, when I'm walking down a stream, do you think I enjoy seeing a tire or trash or a bottle?
Huh.
I don't. And a lot of times I'll just pick it up and throw it in my pack and take it out. But I mean, if they're true outdoorsmen, they must be repulsed about that.
Yeah.
So there's something you can do about it by getting involved in organizations like this. Um, you don't necessarily have to organize it yourself, but there are organizations that do it. And there's nothing wrong with taking a bag along with you and picking up a bag of trash from anywhere.
Yeah.
Even if you're walking on the Cedar River Trail, you're you're walking and wading the Cedar River, you're on the Yak, and you guys know there's crap all over the place. It's never ending. But if you get organizations and people and volunteers out there cleaning it up, well, some of these morons that are there and throw trash out, hmm, maybe I shouldn't do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's a good example across the board to get out there and show other people that there are people willing to take the time and effort to clean up our resources.
Yeah. I think back to a couple summers ago before I was like, really involved in like guiding, or I was just not, I mean, I was just kind of starting out in TU. And one of the things I would do is I would go fish in the morning, and then I'd go back to my truck. I'd grab a garbage bag. I'd go back up to the top of the run. I'd go through that in the hottest part of the day because I don't want to fish and kill these fish. So I go through and clean up garbage, and it's so hot out, you can just enjoy the water a little bit, stay cool off. And then by the time you throw all that away, you're going back to the top of the run, and you get to fish it the afternoon. That's like just things. If you're going to be out there and you want to try to save your resources, it's just like that's a good time to go fish, take a break, get lunch, clean up the river a little bit, and then get back out and fish again if you're trying to take a day of it. So
Man, what a fantastic example. Anybody can do that.
yeah, and that's kind of my point. Is it
Yeah,
wasn't like
yeah. You don't
I,
need recognition. You just do it. And
yeah.
yeah.
It's great to be part of a big event, right? Because you want to
Right.
be part of that. Everyone's kind of got that good feeling to them. They're like, yeah, we just cleaned up this whole river. We're enjoying lunch. We're hanging out. We're getting all this. But at the end of the day, it's like you can do that. But I mean, I've seen beaches in a week after the cleanup. You go back out, and it's like it
Yeah.
never was like that, which is
Right.
really disappointing. But
Right.
you need a couple of those stewards on each river or lake or pond or stream to just make sure that you're always down there cleaning it up because someone's got to do it.
Yep. Yep. You just lead by example.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
For sure. Well, we're gonna kind of move on to a little bit more of a topic on learning more about your personal fishing experiences and a little bit more about you. Is there anything that we didn't ask you about either Project Healing Waters or Trout Unlimited that you think we should know or that our audience should know that we didn't ask?
I think we covered Healing Waters and TU pretty well. So I don't think, with respect to those organizations, there's much more to add.
Yeah.
Just hey, get out there and get involved in those organizations or something similar to them.
For sure. And we'll in our show notes and on the website, and we'll share both your email, Bruce, information directing people towards Project Healing Waters, how they can become a member, how they can volunteer towards Trout Unlimited. That way we can just kind of be a resource for people who are interested in giving back that way.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, anybody interested in either. I'd be happy to be the conduit into the organization. More than happy to do that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Take it away, Keaton.
So let's talk about fishing. What are some places that you have this diverse background of going to all these different places and fishing. What are some of your highlight fishing experiences?
Well, I don't think there's anything quite like Alaska.
Hmm.
And I normally go up there a couple times a year. It's just a really, really special place, and it's pretty close.
Yeah.
So that clearly is one of my favorite spots. In terms of, I think that the Seychelles is probably the most absolute best place in the world to catch big inshore saltwater fish.
Yeah.
It, it's amazing. Um, and another place that I'm really very fond of is New Zealand. The trout fishing there is fantastic. Plus the culture in New Zealand is really special.
Yeah.
Um, uh, there's some of my favorite places, but there's the one thing I enjoy about destination fishing is I enjoy the travel, I enjoy meeting new people, I enjoy the food, I enjoy the scenery. Um, so there's lots of things other than the fishing uh, that makes that type of fishing really really special to me.
Yeah.
But there's some of my favorite places.
How is your tactics different from like the Northwest to New Zealand fishing? I mean, I've seen a lot of, they do some small fly stuff and some very tactical stuff, but like in your personal experience, how was it? Like, how was the fish wise? How was the flies of choice and stuff like that?
A trout is a trout. It's not that different. Now,
Mhm.
they kind of have some rules in New Zealand. You always fish upstream, and it's pretty much all sight fishing, which is cool. But they'll sight fish, and all depending on where the fish is in the fish column, they may tie on a dry or a nymph. I mean, if the fish is 4 feet down, you're going to tie on a nymph. If it's 2 feet from the surface, you might tie on a dry.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, the flies, similar.
similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When you say
Uh,
when you say they're fishing always upstream, are you casting always upstream? Or are you
you're
what?
moving upstream.
Oh, okay, so you're always trying to go in one
They
direction.
they will not they will not fish downstream.
Okay.
And you get the whole thing about, well, the trout have scent lines. They know if you're coming, if you're going downstream. I'm not sure I believe that, but that's what they do in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Um, but whatever. It's there's not as many fish over there, but they're really really nice fish. And of course, they don't stock anything. I mean, the brown trout were brought in a long long time ago, and I think some of them are a Kamloops strain or whatever. Or there are some of the rainbows of the Kamloops strain, and the brown trout are from Europe or whatever. So I mean, trout are not native, but once they brought them in, they've flourished in the streams of New Zealand. So there's no need to stock. And there's only two things in the New Zealand streams: trout and eels.
Oh, crazy.
Big eels. Yeah, yeah. So in fact, one trip I was there, I was on the North Island at Pornui Ranch, which is fairly close to Lake Taupo, and yeah, this group comes in from Europe, and they have like 13-foot surf poles with them. Dude, what are you guys doing? We're fishing for eels. They came to fish for eels.
What
You got me. But
were they like harvesting them, or were they just kept
I
wanted?
I don't I guess you can kill them. And I'm assuming that they were harvesting them, but eel fishing there is pretty good.
That's crazy.
Because it was funny. I'd be on a beat with my guide, and He was saying, there's eels in here. I said, yeah, you kidding me? And so he takes we're eating chicken for lunch, like fried chicken. He takes a chicken bone and tosses it in, and a minute later, up comes a seal. Big eel.
Yeah.
So, but something a little bit unique about New Zealand. But no, it's just a wonderful country. Great scenery. Really, really, really good people. And really, really, really great fishing too.
So up here in Alaska, I mean, we have a lot of lampreys, and we imitate the baby lamprey with things like Dalai Lamas and stuff. Do you ever imitate like baby eels down there, or did the trout ever key in on eels as a food source?
No, no, no. They'll fish the traditional trout flies, traditional nymphs. Um, and I can't think of the name of one, but it looks like a really dark hare's ears. Is probably the most popular fly I ever used. A big blob, weighted blob. Nothing unique. It's just getting the fly to the right place.
Yeah.
A good drift to get it at the right place. The trout will pretty willing to take it. But you take a hare's ear, PT, your typical trout flies. They'll work in New Zealand. And in terms of dries, I really didn't some dry fly fishing, but caddis, typical trout flies.
Yeah. That's awesome. What when you mentioned the Seychelles earlier, what were you targeting there when you went fishing? And
Uh,
what
giant
was
trevally.
giant trevally?
Giant trevally is what I went for.
Did you get any on like top water, or you stay subsurface, or
Well, they the way you fish for trevally, you're using a fly that'll sing, but you're stripping at such a fast rate, it's right under the surface.
yeah,
So when the GTs come for it, I mean, you'll see them. I mean, they're coming right at you,
yeah,
and you'll watch them take the fly 10 feet in front of you, and it's absolutely crazy. I mean, you've probably seen pictures when you're GT fishing. They're stripping like hell, and they're backing up. That's because the fish is following, and you got to back up, and then he'll take it right in front of you, you know.
crazy.
And then it's game on because um, well you have to lock down the drag because if you let them go, they're going to get wrapped in coral. So you literally lock down the drag, and we're fishing 100-pound core to the fly line, 130-pound leader. It's
Yeah.
somebobody's got to win.
What weight rod were you using?
I used an H311 weight.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, most people will fish a 12, but the H3 it's lighter and the H311 weight is probably as strong as a normal 12 weight.
Yeah,
I used the H3 and I caught a sailfish on the same rod too.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Down in the station.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, well, see, we fished the Providence Atoll, and of course that's kind of like a big submerged island is the atoll.
Hmm.
So we were on a liveaboard ship. That's where we stayed. So when the ship went out to the atoll, it's a big ship, so it's anchoring in blue water, but the atoll's right there. So we'd go out and fish the atoll during the day, and late afternoon, the guy said, "Hey, you guys want to do a little blue water fishing?" Hell yeah! You know?
Yeah,
And then you just cross the boat and you're in blue water. So right on the other side of the boat is blue water, and you'd catch tuna, sailfish, whatever
cool.
water fishing. So,
How
um,
many species are you up to now?
pardon me.
Oh, sorry. How many species are you up to now on a fly
I
rod?
was just oh well, I don't know. I think we caught like 17 different species there.
Oh,
Holy cow!
Yeah, and I don't count species, and I don't search different species. Um, I wanted to catch a peacock, so I went down to Brazil just this past November. But um, I still need to get a big golden dorado, so I'm going to Bolivia next year. Try to get,
Yeah.
I've caught small ones, but other than that, hey, give me a big bonefish,
Hmm.
permit, GT, the other, uh, oh, I can't think of the name of the other species. They're like a trevally or a permit. Can't think of the name of it right now. Um, but same species are fine. Just want bigger ones.
For sure.
When you lived on the East Coast, did you do any striper fishing or anything of that sort?
That's interesting. My wife and I had a timeshare in Nantucket, and it was the first week in October, which is a just a primary time for fishing, stripers and blues. You know, um, and there was, we weren't far from the jetty and the beach. One morning I got up early and I walked down to the jetty and I thought, well, let's see if anything's happening here. I'll sit and watch, and if something's happening, I'll fish. If not, I'll go back and have a cup of tea. So I'm out there waiting. The sun's just rising, and all of a sudden you see all the bait fish working alongside the jetty. Okay, I know what that is. So I got out. I caught 15 stripers that day.
Wow.
And I was wading off the jetty. I'm catching a striper, bringing it in, and I got striper going through my legs. You know, there were just a shitload of striper there, and
Yeah.
I hit it right. Nothing real big. I think the biggest one was probably 15 pounds, but most of them were 7, 8 pounds. But just a lot of fun. Uh, and that's probably the only striper fishing that I actually did. Yeah. And I caught a few blues on the fly. That's tough too, but
That's
you
a
know you're in the surf, and
yeah.
what works with the blues. We're out on Great Point again on the island, um, and when the blues are there, they're there. But these guys have these buzz bombs. I mean, they're throwing them 100 yards out, and of course the blues they'll catch a blue, or the blues are following them in. And here I am with a fly rod. So I'm
Mhm.
beside this guy and he's bringing them in. That I can get it out far enough
Yeah.
when he's bringing them in with his rod that I can hook a blue. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was different. So,
Have you ever been on a trip, whether it be in the States or abroad, that you were disappointed in or like had a real negative experience fishing there? Or
huh.
didn't live up to your expectations?
Ah, man, I'll tell you what, Kyle, I can't really think. I've always been pretty lucky. Um, with weather, with all sorts of things. I really can't think of something that I didn't make the best out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously you can. Um, well, like when we were in Seychelles, I yeah, you can't make a bad trip out of the Seychelles. I mean, the tides were perfect for GTs. Okay, which is what I wanted to catch. But if you were there for bonefish, the tides were too high, so the bones weren't there. But you can't call that disappointing since there's 30 other species that you can catch.
Yeah.
But no, I really can't think of a disappointing trip.
Yeah.
So
That's a good problem to have.
Part of that's your attitude too.
Yeah.
You know. But,
for sure. What so going out after coming back from a trip or just the compilation of the trips that you've had, when you come back and you say fish the cedar, in your backyard, you fish the Yakima or somewhere on the peninsula. What is that like, bringing back all that knowledge from everything you've learned and using it on your home water?
Well, I mean, every fishing situation is different. I mean, trout is trout. I get that. But you're not going to do anything like you do in the Seychelles on the cedar. uh, but to me, a trophy on the cedar where I live is 15 inches. That's
Yeah.
I'm not looking for an 8-pound rainbow on the cedar. I like being out. My dog, I'll take my dog walking on the cedar. Not so much anymore since she's 15 and a half. She can't do it anymore, but I just like being out,
Yeah.
in the water and catching fish. Um, and the same with the peninsula. Of course, the peninsula is pretty screwed up now. You can't fish from the boat, and there's too many people, blah blah blah. So I didn't even go out this year. But I mean, there's obviously some really good steelhead fishing out there. Um, but all fishing for steelhead obviously is different than fishing for trout. Not a whole lot different. Um, but you just have whatever you're fishing for, you need to adjust your attitude towards the situation.
Yeah. You you have to have a mindset on kind of what you're going after, right? Like,
Right, right, right.
and
But
when
the big thing to me is just being out there,
yeah,
floating the Ho River, gorgeous. You know, uh, just being there is special.
yeah, it's kind of I think that's what gets the niche of like all these small, like micro fishing and stuff, right? The people just enjoy fishing and just like enjoy catching these things that you don't get to see every day, or and that varies from like the super small fish to all the way up to your GTs and stuff, right?
Yeah,
It's just that's that mindset going in, knowing that, yeah, I'm gonna catch this size fish on this size rod, and I'm gonna get a great experience.
yeah, yeah. It's all relative, you know.
Oh, that's well said. Well, Kyle's anything else you wanted to ask?
Nope, I think I'm good on those questions there.
All right. Well, Bruce, we're coming into our favorite time of the podcast. It's our rapid fire round. We ask every guest these rapid fire questions just to see kind of what they think, what their take on it. So, without further ado, Kyle, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So, Bruce, what is your favorite fish to catch?
GT.
I mean, you've been on a lot of trips, you've been to a lot of places, but what is a dream destination for you?
Seychelles.
Seychelles?
What is your favorite meal and drink for when you're out fishing?
Beer, and I don't meal. I really don't care.
Nice.
Just a sandwich doesn't really matter.
Nice.
You're
But
headed.
I do drink beer when I fish.
That's important.
What kind of beer are you drinking, Bruce?
Whatever they serve. I mean, well, you're in Belize, you drink this. You're in the Seychelles, you drink this. Whatever they have, it's normally just fine.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. You're going fishing. You're going over to, let's say, the Yakima. What kind of music are you listening to when you're getting yourself ready to go fish?
Classic rock and roll,
Yes.
Yeah.
but no music on the river. No cell phones, no music.
Enjoying the surroundings.
Exactly.
You're hearing Keaton upriver. Sat, 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 sat.
I'm like, oh man, I picked the wrong stuff today. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. You're headed out the door to fish, or maybe you're packing up for another trip. What's the first thing that you grab that you can't leave the house without? Maybe something that might a lot of people might overlook, something you might think is just different than what somebody else might grab.
Polarized sunglasses.
That's a popular one.
Super important.
What
And a
is
beer.
and a beer? You gotta look good and you gotta feel good when you're fishing, right?
True that.
What is something you wish you knew when you first started fishing?
Wish I was better at figuring out what the fish eat. Entomology, I don't know.
Yeah, doing a little more studying on the what's kind of around that area before you
Well,
go.
I think like many guys, I go to the stream and I fish. Probably the first thing you need to do is turn over a couple of rocks and look around. So I could be better at or can still be better at doing it, figuring out what fish eat.
Yeah.
There's old standbys that usually work, but
I I mean, I think if you just kind of what I found is just as long as I get towards the size and the general color, you do pretty well. But flipping rocks is like a big thing, figuring out what to use and what could be around and looking at the water before you're fishing it.
yep, yep.
What's been the favorite place that you've gone fishing?
Uh, Probably Alaska. Float trip in Alaska.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so we'd like to kind of end our podcast with your favorite fishing story or moment. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be awesome, it can be, maybe something you learned. Um, Go ahead and the stage is yours, Bruce.
My favorite fishing moment. Wow.
There's a lot of them.
I have a few. Well, I'm going to go way back because I've caught lots of fish in lots of different places and really, really special times. But when I think I was 12 years old, I was gear fishing with my two brothers and my dad. We were on a farm pond in Pennsylvania. And I had a jitterbug on. Uh, and I caught a 6.5 pound bass on the jitterbug.
That's awesome.
And I won the local sports store annual fishing tournament with that bass. So whatever, I have a picture of that bass. I'm holding it up, and it's like half the size of me. So that was pretty special.
How old were you when you caught that bass?
I was 12.
12. Wow. That's cool.
1965.
And that just shows that those memories stick with you,
Oh
for
yeah,
your so.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I just have one other piece of advice for all the listeners. You got to take a trip of a lifetime at least twice a year.
I like it.
Kyle's heard it before.
I have. Yep. And it's true. I like it.
Yep, yep. Get out there and do some fishing.
Heck yeah. Well, Bruce, we appreciated having you on the episode today and to talk about Project Healing Waters, talk about Trout Unlimited, and wrap it up talking a little bit about some of your experiences. But just tell us once again how people can contact you or volunteer or join Project Healing Waters and TU.
Yeah, I just contact me. My email is bctyso19 at comcast.net, or you can phone me at 425-413-8029. That's a landline. It will take messages, but it does not take texts. Call or email. Best way to get a hold of me, and I can link you up. I find out a little bit about the individual and link you up with the appropriate contacts, and I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
Well, that was another episode of the Young Guides podcast. We appreciate everyone for taking the time to listen to this podcast or listen to previous podcasts. Me and Kyle would really appreciate it if you hop on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing, good or bad. And now Spotify is also doing reviews on it as well. So if you could hop on there, make sure to check out our YouTube channel, the Young Guides podcast. We're uploading some cool time videos and some Kyle's doing a lot of great stuff with his Alaska adventures up there. And we want to thank everyone who has served or is serving for our country. We appreciate you so much, and we get to do this because of you. So thank you again. And thank you again, Bruce, for hopping on with us. It means the world to me and Kyle for people to take the time to just talk for, an hour or two with us. So
Thanks, guys. I really enjoyed myself.
absolutely. So with that being said, this was another episode of the Young Guides podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.